An official complaint sitting in Brussels. A national football body openly admitting it has no control over its own World Cup. Scottish fans turned away at the United States border, days before their first finals since 1998. And a British Prime Minister telling FIFA, out loud, that its prices are far too high and the way it does things is wrong. This is not a few angry tweets. This is Europe pushing back against the 2026 World Cup from every side at once. And FIFA's answer? Relax. That word came straight from the top. On June 10th, standing inside the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City, the head of FIFA, Gianni Infantino, told everyone complaining about ticket prices to chill out. The demand for tickets, he said, had blown past every guess by 10 times or more. 6 million tickets, already gone, nothing to see here. Then, the football actually started, and the cracks showed up almost right away, on camera, in front of the whole world. Guadalajara, the Estadio Akron. South Korea were playing the Czech Republic, and on paper, this match looked like a win. FIFA said the crowd was 44,985 in a stadium that holds around 46,000, nearly full, a great number. Except the pictures told a different story. Whole sections behind the goals sat empty. The pricey areas near the pitch, the fancy company seats where tickets ran anywhere from $400 to $5,000, had gaps you could count from your couch. The tickets had been sold. The people just were not there. So who bought them? A lot of those seats go to sponsors, to company guests, and to ticket resellers hoping to flip them for a profit. When the game is not a glamour tie, those buyers often just do not show up. The seat is paid for. It still sits empty. FIFA has long blamed no-shows like these, but on live television, the excuse does not fill the gap. And that is the first clue to what is really going on here. Days before the tournament even kicked off, about 176,000 seats for the group stage were still sitting unsold on FIFA's own resale site. The demand Infantino talked about, the 10 times demand, the 6 million tickets, somehow it was not turning into people in seats. You would think someone inside FIFA would have pointed that out before the cameras did. Nobody did. To understand how the biggest World Cup in history ended up playing to half-empty company seats, you have to follow the money. To be exact, the prices. When the United States, Canada, and Mexico won the right to host, the plan promised something fair. The most costly final ticket was meant to cost at most around $1,550. That was the promise on paper. Then FIFA stepped in. It brought in something it calls variable pricing. That is a polite way of saying the price goes up when more people want in, with no limit and no warning. The cheapest ticket to the final started at $4,185 back in December. By the spring, that same cheapest seat had climbed to around $5,785. That is the bottom. That is the cheap one. It only goes up from there. The most costly normal tickets to the final started around $6,730, then jumped to nearly $11,000 as sales went on. And at the very top, FIFA's best tier for the final reached $32,970 for one seat for one match. Read that again? Almost $33,000 to watch a football game. Now compare that to the last World Cup. In Qatar, 4 years ago, ticket prices ran from about $69 at the bottom to $1,607 at the very top. So the most costly seat at this World Cup is more than 20 times the most costly seat at the last one. Across the board, fan groups say the new prices are about 5 times higher than Qatar. And the cheap tickets FIFA keeps showing off, the $60 starting price the boss loves to mention, those barely exist. Most group games started closer to $140, and the small batch of truly cheap seats was only ever given out through national football bodies, not put on sale to everyone. FIFA's answer is simple. If they are doing something wrong, Infantino said, then everyone in North America is doing something wrong, because $60 is still cheaper than the playoff prices in American sports. The catch is that almost nobody is actually paying $60. And this is where it stops being just a fan complaint. The top government lawyers in New York and New Jersey opened an official inquiry into the ticketing. Based on what they found, FIFA raised prices for more than 90 of the 104 matches by an average of around 34% in the months before the tournament. When two state governments start digging into your prices, the anger has moved well past the stands. There is one more piece to the money story, and it is the strangest part. FIFA runs its own resale site, the place where fans buy and sell spare tickets. On every sale, it takes a fee of 15% from the buyer and another 15% from the seller. That is close to 30% on a single ticket, charged twice on the same seat. Then something odd happened in late May. The number of tickets on FIFA's own site suddenly dropped by around 44,000, with no clear reason given. Around the same time, a wave of tickets showed up on outside resale sites, often for less than the official price. Some money experts believe FIFA may have quietly pushed blocks of unsold seats onto those sites to clear them out, while keeping its own prices high. FIFA has not commented on that, and the resale sites deny any deal. It is a claim, not a proven fact, but it fits something fans had already spotted. In the month before kickoff, resale prices fell by about 20%, a sign of far more tickets floating around than the 10 times demand FIFA kept describing. And at the very top, the numbers turned almost silly. The government lawyers looking into the ticketing said some resale seats for the final were listed at close to $2 million, and that simply getting into the final could set a fan back nearly $33,000. So that is the machine, a price system with no limit aimed at the most loyal people in the sport. And those people noticed. If you are following this World Cup and you want clear, honest breakdowns of the stories the football bosses would rather you skipped, take a second and subscribe. We are covering every twist of this tournament, on and off the pitch. While FIFA was busy defending its prices in news conferences, something was already moving thousands of miles away, inside the European Union. Back in March, two groups filed an official complaint against FIFA with the European Commission. One was Football Supporters Europe, the biggest fan network on the continent. The other was Euro Consumers, a major group that stands up for customers. Together, they accused FIFA of misusing its power in several ways. The cheap tickets it advertised barely existed. Prices could jump by as much as 25% from one sale window to the next, with no warning. Fans were asked to pay before they even knew their seat, their teams, or the stadium, with little or no money back if their plans changed. And to push people into buying fast, FIFA leaned on scare tricks, fake countdown clocks, and low stock alerts. Ronan Evane, who runs Football Supporters Europe, said it plainly. FIFA, he said, leaves loyal fans with no real choice. Pay up or lose out. The Football Supporters Association in England went even harder. They said what should have been a worldwide party had been turned into a FIFA cash cow. The two groups did not just want a vent. They asked the Commission to act fast. Stop the moving prices for fans in Europe, freeze ticket costs back at their December level, and make FIFA show the full seat list and the prices at least 48 hours before each sale went live. So, what happened to that complaint? Here is the awkward part. The European Commission said it got the complaint and said it would look at it using its normal process. And then, as far as the public knows, very little. No emergency action, no order to freeze the prices. The tournament started while the complaint was still waiting in line. Lawyers who study these cases had already warned that, with the tournament this close, it was almost impossible for the Commission to step in quickly enough. The fans did everything right, through the proper legal way, and the whistle blew anyway. That was just the official, legal side. The anger was also coming straight from the national football bodies. Germany's football body was asked why German fans were facing costs of roughly 5,900 to 14,000 euros just to follow their team all the way to the final. The football body's answer said a lot. They said they would have liked cheaper tickets for their fans, but that FIFA alone sets the prices, and the football body has no say over that. That is a national football body openly washing its hands of its own World Cup prices. Not great. In England, the pressure went further. The Football Association faced growing calls from its own fans to turn down its share of tickets as a protest. The numbers explain why. The cheapest ticket to the final through the official England Supporters Travel Club still cost around £3,100. For comparison, the same kind of ticket at the last European Championship was about £83. £83, then £3,100. Same sport, same fans, 2 years apart. And here is what makes this revolt different. It is not coming from the teams. No country has pulled its side out of the tournament. In England, the Football Association faced loud calls to boycott but kept its place. And in Germany, the football body openly distanced itself from the prices without ever threatening to walk away. The real pushback is coming from underneath them, from the fans, the consumer groups, and the politicians who answer to those fans. That is much harder for FIFA to wave away than one federation kicking up a fuss, because this is not one angry board. It is the base of the sport. But the politicians' part is where this gets serious. because the pushback was no longer only about prices. For Scottish fans, this World Cup was meant to be a once-in-a-lifetime party. Scotland had reached the finals for the first time since 1998. And then, days before the tournament, some of those fans found that their permission to travel to the United States had been quietly taken away. After 28 years of waiting, the trip of a lifetime was suddenly in doubt, and this time it had nothing to do with money. It was the border. One fan, Kenny Smith, watched his travel status flip to the words "travel not authorized," even though he had no criminal record. He called it the worst possible start. He was then told he had to send off for an official police certificate to prove he was clean, the kind of paperwork that can take weeks, with the match only days away. He was not alone, and the story climbed all the way up. Scotland's First Minister, John Swinney, said he had raised it with the United States authorities and would do everything possible to help sort it out. Then the Prime Minister himself spoke up. Keir Starmer said the ticket prices were far too high, in his view, and called the way FIFA was running things the wrong move. When a sitting Prime Minister is openly telling FIFA to look again, you are well past a few angry tweets. And the ticket storm is only one part of a much bigger pile of problems. The Worldwide Players Union, FIFPro, has been warning for months about extreme heat. With matches played through North American summer afternoons, scientists found that most of the host cities often climb above 82 degrees Fahrenheit, hot enough to put player safety at real risk. The union put its warning in a long report and said the danger was made worse by a packed schedule that never seems to give players a proper rest. Researchers found that 14 of the 16 host cities often pass that 82-degree mark in the afternoon. FIFA's answer was to add cooling breaks of 3 minutes in every one of the 104 matches. Doctors and climate scientists wrote an open letter saying 3 minutes was not enough and asked for 6. Remember, this is the first World Cup with 48 teams spread across 3 countries and 16 cities. More games, more travel, and more heat than any tournament before it. Critics said the breaks should be longer. Then there was the water bottle mess. FIFA first told fans they could not bring their own sealed water into stadiums in the American heat before changing its mind after the backlash. Even the British Prime Minister called that one out, saying it looked like a rule built around making money rather than looking after people. And hanging over all of it is the politics. Last December, FIFA handed the first ever FIFA Peace Prize to Donald Trump at a grand ceremony in Washington. A watchdog group then filed a complaint saying the prize broke FIFA's own promise to stay out of politics, and Norway's football body backed that complaint. It raised hard questions about a group that is supposed to keep its distance from world leaders. For a body already accused of treating the World Cup like a cash machine, it could not have looked worse. So step back and look at the full picture. A price system with no limit, an official complaint stuck in Brussels, national football bodies admitting they have no control, fans turned away at the border, players warning about the heat, and a president telling everyone to relax. That is the World Cup that kicked off this week. The tournament will roll on. The goals will come, the highlight reels will play, and for the lucky few who can pay for it, the football will be amazing. FIFA is betting that once the drama on the pitch begins, nobody will remember the empty seats or the $30,000 tickets or the complaint gathering dust in Europe. But chill and relax only work as answers if the people you are talking to can actually get in the building. Right now, a lot of them cannot, and they are not staying quiet about it. The real question is not whether this World Cup will be remembered. It will. The question is whether it gets remembered for the football or for the moment the sport's own fans decided they had finally had enough. If you want the next chapter of this story, the empty seats, the complaint, the prices, follow along and subscribe. Because this fight is not over. Not even close.